Hello there, everybody. Sean Sheehan and Graham McDonald here, back with another edition of the betting shows. We've a big weekend of mixed martial arts coming up this weekend. Bellator is going down on Friday. We'll actually both be at it. Graham's going up as a fan to watch the old card, and I'll be doing a bit of coverage, possibly. Probably just sitting down watching the fights as well, and a huge UFC card as well, which we will talk about and give our bets for in a second. But we must tell you this episode of the betting show is brought to us by our friends over at BetUS. If you look there on screen now, you will see BetUS. So if you go to SevereMMA.com/BetUS, it'll take you right here, and you can sign up for in the US or in Canada. BetUS, the sports betting season is in full force now. Hockey and basketball, and there was a bit of NFL on last night. I was seeing it all. And the place to go, the sports book with integrity and longevity, is BetUS. You may already know this, but BetUS have been pioneers in the sports betting industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That's betus.com, and they have loads of bonuses. So join now or call 800-69-BETUS. That's 800-MY-BETUS to receive a 125% sign-up bonus by using the code SevereMMA. You can also go to SevereMMA.com/BetUS. It'll take you right there. They have re-up and referral bonuses also. BetUS is known as America's favorite sportsbook for a lot of reasons. They have NBA and NHL games with team and player props, loads of NFL fixtures. The NFL odds are already up, and you can bet matches in the UFC and Bellator. They have loads of props. The golf, they have absolutely everything. Casino, horses, Cheltenham coming up soon. I bet you they'll have that as well. Every type of bet imaginable. Sharp better bets with BetUS on their mobile platform. It's easy with full betting options. So follow my lead and get your phone. Go online with the sports social betting partner with integrity and longevity like I did. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. So go to BetUS. Go to SevereMMA.com/BetUS. Get a 125% sign-up bonus with the code SevereMMA. And also, we must tell you as well that this episode and this stream is brought to you by our friends over at All Real. If you look there down the bottom, if you use the code SevereMMA for them, you get 20% off at eatallreal.com, and they'll be bringing us our streams all year. So they're absolutely fantastic. Niall, who runs Eat All Real, is a big fan of the SevereMMA podcast and has been for a good while. So it's absolutely great to get these support, and you'll see more streams like this all the time because of them. So support local. They're down the road from here. They're down in Kerry. So if you look down there, eatallreal.com, get 15% off with the promo code SevereMMA. We're all fucking ads today, Graham. All ads, non-stop.
Sold out.
Sold off. We sold off. We had to do a bit of selling out. Sure. We had to do a bit of selling out. But anyway, we still have the content, and we still have all that good stuff. And the betting show obviously is back as well. This might be our last betting show for a while, maybe, because I'm the one over in Sherlock as well. It's a bit much doing 2 betting shows at a time, but we were contracted to do this betting show, so we had to do it. But we might see the odd one as well from us down the line. We have lots of stuff on Patreon as well. Your first Patreon podcast with Owen Roddy's gone down awful well. People are saying it's absolutely fantastic, and people are up in their spin and ring. This is up for free as well. So if you're listening to this, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And sign up there. So it's very good. But anyway, we'll get to what we're getting done. We'll get straight into the bets. Give us your first bet, Graham, for the weekend in mixed martial arts.
Well, since it's a pretty big weekend, a pretty big week for Irish MMA. Obviously, we have Ian Garry making his UFC debut. We have this huge Bellator card for Irish interest anyway in Dublin. So I thought I'd kind of keep it local in my bets. And my first bet, I got a treble here. I usually don't do trebles because, an accumulator, anything can happen. But looking at these 3 fights I've put together, I expect all 3 fighters to kind of cruise and have their own way and have a pretty comfortable victory here. So Fabian Edwards, Ian Garry, and Danny Nealon treble to get just over evens as an accumulator. I think that's a very safe bet, especially as 3 fight accumulators go.
Mm-hmm. I think you need to refer to her as Sean Sheehan's biggest fan, Danny Nealon. Is it Niall or Neil? Apparently she was given out to Ian, but I don't know. There was something wrong with the technology with Matt, and I think we missed out on that bit. But apparently we've been saying her name wrong all the time. But anyway, that's
oh god. Probably get everybody's name wrong, so no offense.
I'm not sure. Hopefully I'll meet her this week and I'll be able to ask her. But Yeah, so you've got Ian Gary, Danny, and Fabian. That's a good bet, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, I think they're probably straight up. Danny's opponent, I found it very hard to see anything on her. She's over in France, and there really isn't much tape for her. I was looking for my preview for Sherdog and stuff, and I really couldn't find much on her. But I would still suggest, that Danny's probably a big favorite in that. So yeah, that's a good bet and a good treble to start us off. It's funny enough, I've gone for a treble as well this week, which is unusual because we we both rarely go for trebles, but as the mood takes us, Graham, why not? Why not anyway? Um, I suppose your other, like Fabian as well. His opponent, don't know much about him. There isn't much about him around either. I was looking for
Yeah.
videos, so I couldn't find much.
It seems like kind of like a step back for Fabian. Obviously, it's on short notice and all that, so they're just trying to get him a fight. But we've seen him against this kind of opponent that we don't really know much about with a decent record before, and he's always kind of had his way with those guys. It's when he stepped up against kind of tougher opponents that it's not been so easy for him. So yeah, without knowing too much about his opponent, just looking at his record and knowing a lot about Fabian since he was an amateur and obviously since he turned pro and what skills he has, and I know he hasn't, sorted out ironed out all the problems in his game, but I think we can see a bit of progression there, a bit more urgency, and I think he's going to have a statement win in this fight. I know Fonseca's an experienced guy, but I think this Fabian really is, one of the best prospects still in the local scene in the UK and Ireland, and I think a few little tweaks here and there, and he can get back to kind of making his way towards a Bellator title.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet, and definitely one to look at, and definitely one to keep an eye on throughout the weekend. 3 bets. So I'll go for my treble as well while we're here. I'm going for an Irish treble because I remember always around these cards, you hear lads in the Gibson the night before, it's like, I have a treble on these 3 lads, and I heard this lad has gone well in the gym, and all of this. And I remember Neil Seary's friend from Team Rhino. Do you know what's that lad's name? Oh God, all the Team Rhino lads are probably roaring at me now, but he had a bet, a bet on. I think he'd only 15 quid, well, only a 15 quid bet on 3 of the Irish lads that won the Dublin cards, and he got like fucking €400 out of it or something. He was going around showing off to everyone around the Gibson afterwards. So, it's one of those weeks. So I'm going for an Irish treble. And I was looking at last night, it was 10-1, and now it's out to 11-1. So I'm not sure who's gone up in price actually. But Ian Gary, James Gallagher, and Peter Queally, 11-1 to win, all 3 of them. Now that's Peter Queally's a tough fight, James Gallagher's a tough fight, Ian Gary not so much, I don't think. But 11-1 for all 3 of them to win. I like that. Have actually for over my my Sherdog betting show, I don't know if it's out for yet or not. James Gallagher's a big underdog. James Gallagher's like plus 225. And I was very shocked by that. Were you shocked that James is such a big underdog?
Well, yeah. Sorry, my dogs are barking here, but yeah, James is one of my bets because I looked at the odds and I thought I'm not sure who's going to win this fight. I think this is a really hard fight to pick. We talked about it on the podcast. James has been out for a year, but he's been overtrained and hopefully adding new skills. He's obviously a young guy. People sometimes forget that he has a lot of skills, and Patchy Mix is another guy who has a lot of skills and a lot of fights and a lot of experience, but I see James having a bit of an advantage on the ground here, especially if he gets on top. We all know how kind of patient and dominant and how much of a finisher James is when he gets on top. I think his offensive striking is underrated. I think his defensive striking historically hasn't been great, but hopefully, he's been working on that, and he's been over there with Strauss and people like that, in a new camp, and I expect him to come back looking better. The Irish crowd is another big thing. James has been in front of that crowd since he was a baby in this sport. He's always been under pressure. He was the 13-year-old who left school and moved in with John, and had this great amateur career, and he's had a lot of pressure on him at all times. And Patchy Mix is coming into the biggest atmosphere of his career here, and yeah, I agree with you. The odds are wildly wrong here. I think this is a really hard fight to choose, and at that price, 12-5, that's one of my bets. James Gallagher, 12-5.
Yeah, I think that's the best bet of the weekend, honestly. And the only reason I didn't give it here, I put in a treble, is because I've already given it over in that show. So I tried to spread my bets around, but yeah, like even if there's probably a lot of people listening to this that probably maybe think Patchy Mix will win. Maybe some people think James will win.
I can see that as well. I can see methods of victory for both, but I don't see this as a lopsided one-way fight like the bookies seem to.
No way. There's no way this should be plus 225. Like, there's no way James is that big of an underdog in this fight. As you mentioned, with the new training camp with Ireland, and everything like that. It's just like I can't see it. Like having watched some Apache mix as well, I feel like he might be a slightly of a good matchup for James. My dad's famous last words as well, but I think Patch isn't. I don't think he's like the fastest striker in the world, or I don't think like he is this technician that maybe you could say that James Gallagher might struggle with, or like Ricky Bandejas in the past, that's going to throw 1-2s up through the middle. He's more of like a hook, big power shots, and then push you against the cage and take you down. He's brilliant on the ground. You know, James is very good on the ground as well. I think that ground game could be very fun. I hope it goes down there because it's got to be really fun. But you know, whoever kind of gets the back, whoever gets the most advantageous position on the way down is probably the one who's going to dominate there because they're both so good in that position. But yeah, that's your second bet anyway. James Gallagher to win, so we've kind of crewed them in together by 3-1 bet. I'll give my second bet so here as well. I go for John Vellante to beat the old bear, Mr. Bennett at 5-6. Like his first appearance in the UFC, Bennett was. Look, he's a fun fighter. He's a funny kind of guy, but it wasn't great, really, was it? Let's be honest here. It just wasn't fantastic at all. And Vellante is a guy who hasn't been doing too badly over the last while. I thought after certain performances in his career that we mightn't see more of John Vellante at the top level in the UFC, but kind of moving up to heavyweight, I think has helped him a bit. And I think someone like Chris Bennett is the sort of perfect matchup that John Vellante needs. And, you know, I think he will.
I thought you were leader of the Barnett fan club there a few months ago, no?
I like him. I like him. But that doesn't. That money is a different thing, Gray. That doesn't mean I think he'll win. You know, but yeah, it's look, it'll be a fun fight. I think it'll be one of those ones where both lads get tired. And, you know,
As I was going to say, John Vellante fight, like he does kind of, you know, not fight very smart sometimes and get tired sometimes. It leads to exciting fights, and you know, he's definitely an exciting fighter. But I don't know. I'd stay away from betting on John Vellante.
that might be a wise call thinking about it again now, but yeah, that'll be a fun fight anyway. Be a bit of crack. I'm struggling. This is my 50
when you have to pick like 12 bets off one card or off two cards.
Loads of bets, yeah. Should be grand anyway. Go on, give us your last one, so.
Well, my last one is actually one you have in your accumulator again. It's Peter Queally at 15-8. You know, I talked about it on the podcast. I'm kind of just repeating myself here, but you know, big crowd, you know, having a good walk-in tune that's going to get people interested or people engaged, the crowd engaged. You know, they fought before most recently, and you know, it was a close first round, and it was a finish by Queally then ultimately. So I think the odds are a bit wrong here again. I think the Irish guys are being underestimated by the bookies here. I know Pitbull, like he's been around, he's fought in some huge cards. He's fought on some of the biggest cards Bellator have ever had, but the atmosphere here is going to be hostile. Peter Queally, this is the biggest fight of his life. This is a chance at a Bellator title. I think Queally's going to go in there wanting it more, and I think, you know, the skill levels are similar. And I think, you know, it could go either way, but I have a feeling Queally's going to get this done. And it may not be easy. There may be some adversity, but we've seen him come through that before. We've seen him in loads of difficult spots, and we know he's got no quit in him. You know, just look at the Ryan Scope fight. Even look at that last, you know, all of his last recent fights over the years. He's a hard-nosed, tough guy who can grind out fights when he needs. And he also, you know, he can submit people, he can wrestle people, and he can finish people on the feet. So I think he's got a lot of methods of victory here. I'm not ruling out Pitbull at all, but I think this is a tougher fight than is being made out by the bookies here. And if like 50-50 going to my head or free bet $1 million, I'll be going Queally here.
Would you? That's interesting. Now I think it's like I think it's a very, very close one, to be honest. I have put it in my accumulator. I was going to put it in one of my other bets, but I kind of pulled out because I'm not sure. It's one of those ones I'm. If it was a slightly bigger price, you know, if it was 2.5 or maybe, you know, if it was 3-1 maybe or something, I probably would have gone for Queally. But I don't know. It's a bit too close. It's a bit. I don't know. Sometimes, right? I very rarely do this, but sometimes you kind of have to like fight against your biases at times. But I also think then you fight against.
Yeah,
you
can
much.
over kind of
Because like I went back and I watched that fight, and my talk coming out of that first one I watched, it was, you know, Peter Queally did way better than I was expecting. But, you know, maybe maybe he got the look on the night, Then I went back and I watched it. I was like, no, Peter Queally was just better that night. Okay, the finish was like a little bit odd or whatever because of the stoppage, and he said that himself. I talked to him the other day. But I thought he was the better fighter over that. Now, that doesn't mean he'd be the better fighter on Friday when we come up to that card, but I don't know, there is just a bit myself like, am I being too favourable to the Irish guy? I don't think I am. I haven't watched the fight as a fighter A versus fighter B, especially from kind of the judging point of view as well. But yeah, I don't know. But
yeah. I think I think you're right. This is a fight that could go either way. Like I mentioned, like Queally has ways of methods of victory. Like I think Pitbull, has all the methods of victory. Queally has as well. This is a really good fight. This is a fight that Queally's really worked hard for. I think this is seems like an accumulation for Queally, and for Pitbull, I think maybe it's not as important of a fight. But having said that, maybe the first time maybe Pitbull underestimated Queally a little bit, and he'll be more ready this time. So, there's a number of factors going into it, but yeah, I think especially with Queally as a big underdog or sizable enough underdog, I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, 100%. Right, I'll give you my last one now. Over on the Sherdog Betting Show, I have my flyer of the week. I have one flyer that goes mad, and it's 12-1 Usman to win by submission. I think he'll win by knockout, though. That that's if I go into my head, I think that, and it's 6-4 Usman to win by knockout over 5 rounds. I think that's a fantastic one. I think he's finishing Colby. I really do. He finished him the last time. It was a little bit controversial. It wasn't really but
it was a little bit. It was controversial.
A little bit, but I think Colby,
if it had been stopped the other way, like it would have been a lot more controversial. Yeah, the champion losing his belt that way.
Maybe, but I think Colby is a very, very good fighter, great fighter, in fact. Inside the cage, forget about he's out the cage antics because we're talking about the fight and we're talking about betting. But I don't think he has improved since the first fight. Now, he doesn't need to improve. He's a fantastic fighter. But I think Usman was a fantastic fighter then, and he's gone up and up and up levels since that fight. And okay, you could maybe say he's fighting Masvidal, a guy who's not that good compared to this level. But I'm more talking about what we're seeing from Usman and seeing the improvement. That jab and his striking has just gone up levels for me. And if this turns into a striking match, I think Usman is going to eat him up and finish him. It'll either be a knockout or submission. I'm going for a knockout here. I think it's most likely 6-4. Could be ground and pound or something like that. But I think Colby, like I said this in the podcast, so we won't go into it madly again, but Colby needs to make this a grappling match. He needs to push this against the cage, try to take him out. Even if he gets kind of, not necessarily dominating that area, but even if Usman is holding him against the cage, I think that's fine. He needs to turn into that. He can't put this in reverse and put it into a striking match like it was the first time. It was a great fight and all that, and maybe not the fight a lot of people, me especially, was expecting the first time. But if you're not Team Colby, if you're Colby Covington, you don't need to see that again, because and like the problem is, okay, he could lose the other fight as well. The fight I'm talking about him fighting, I think he probably will, but he's definitely gonna lose the fight if you're striking with Usman. And I actually think Colby is one of the most underrated strikers in the UFC. In terms
and he did land some decent shots, some good shots on Usman the first time. Yeah, but I do agree, like if you can just use a little bit of striking to try and set up shots and try and make it as scrappy and difficult and grindy as he possibly can, which does suit his style. But yeah, I think style makes fights, and kind of Usman's just a little bit better at everything that Colby likes to do.
Yeah, 100%. Right, let's look through some of the prices here before we go. Thanks to our friends over at BetUS. And the best part, you can actually change the prices. I've done it. Scroll up. Oh yeah, so you could change it between fractional, American decimal, and all that. So if you're over in the US or in,
if you're like Sean and you get extremely confused by real odds,
like the proper prices, do it like that. So Covington is 5-2, Usman 2-7, Zhang Weili 13-5. So is Rose. They're both the same price. Michael Chandler 33-20, which is 3-2, and then Justin Gaethje is almost 2-1 on there. Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar's a big underdog here. I've given him over my Sherdog show. That's my first bet of the week.
I was thinking maybe Frankie Edgar by decision, but the prop bets weren't up yet. And I was also thinking about doing Michael Chandler over Gaethje, just because of kind of how exposed Gaethje's ground game has been. Obviously, he's fighting some top caliber grapplers, but I think, I don't know. Gaethje's just such a dangerous guy at the start of rounds when it's standing up as well, that I just decided against it. But there is a few, very interesting matchups there, betting wise as well.
I just think Frankie Edgar at 3-2. If you gave me Frankie Edgar at 2-1 on, I'd probably take him in this match against Chito Vera. I know everyone knows my opinion on Frankie over the last while, but I think he's enough to do it here. But anyway, Alex Pereira is a big favorite over Michailidis 2-1. Ali Quinta is the underdog against Bobby Green, another one that's very surprising to me. Well, anyway, I haven't gone for that. I should have probably gone for some reason. I think the Burgos one is
There
right
are two
there.
guys like Bobby Green and Ali Quinta that's hard to know exactly what you're going to get from them. They're a bit inconsistent, so it's one maybe better stay away from.
Yeah, and there's Ian Gary, 11-4. Jared Williams. Gary, a big favorite there. And we've both gone for him in our accumulators. Probably not big enough of a price to go for straight up. There's John Vellante and Chris Bennett. Odie Osborne is the favorite over CJ Vergara. And then we've other bets as well. And let's just pop over here. They have Bellator as well. If you go to the MMA tab, you will see their Bellator prices on BetUS. Peter Coyley 2-1 with BetUS. Patricky Pitbull 2-5. Gallagher almost 3-1 there. That is a crazy price altogether. Patchy Mix 1-4. If you're over in America, lads, I'm telling you, BetUS 3-1 early. Pedro Carvalho 3-2 there, just over that. Daniel Weichel, they're almost 2-1, and Scatese. We have Barton. Kieran Clark is the favorite for that one. There's Danny Nyland 1-6. Dara Kelly, the Irish MMA amateur.
Yeah. Dara Kelly's another one that, if you're trying to get an accumulator going and you need an extra guy, I think you should win comfortably as well. But just obviously the odds are low.
Yeah, so a lot of good fights there. And as we said, head on over to BetUS if you're in the US or Canada and check them all out. Right, we will leave it there, everybody. Thanks again to our friends over at All Real Nutrition for the stream. So go to eatallreal.com, use the promo code SevereMMA for 50% off, and of course thanks to our friends over at BetUS. Go to SevereMMA.com/BetUS, use the promo code SevereMMA for 125% sign up bonus. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Sign up patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast, and we leave it there. Boom.